Hey folks, this is Fernando doing a quick video here for More Survivalists. I thought about doing a video regarding knife finishes, which one is best and why. This is a video inspired by a post I did a few days ago regarding a man in Argentina who was rescued thanks to his knife. He's a carpenter actually. He was working in a mountain refugee and he was surrounded by the flames of a wildfire. And after escaping and spending a few days out there in the wild, he managed to signal for help using the blade of his knife. He saw a nearby helicopter and signaled using his shiny blade, and the pilots actually saw the reflection and got him rescued. This is something that you sometimes read in wilderness survival manuals and such. The possibility of using a blade for signaling or some other shiny metal or a mirror. Of course, a proper signaling mirror would be even better. But if this is what you have, then that's great. Now, if you have a knife like this one, maybe you're out of luck. So yeah, yet another reason to actually have a mirror polished blade. Now, I understand that a lot of folks don't quite understand which one is best, and that's the idea of this video. The short answer is the best finish you could possibly have in a knife, a mirror polish finish such as the one Victorinox uses. Victorinox uses it because they know what's best. And which are the advantages? Well, simply the following ones. It's easier to keep it clean. All right, it's not just about signaling when trapped. You know, that's kind of a very rare situation that you're going to be in. So that wouldn't be the first reason to actually have that. But it's much easier to keep it clean. It's easier to wipe clean. There's less surface for grit, dirt, humidity, fluids to attach to the blade. Right, it's easier to keep it clean, and this is important if the knife is going to be used for food preparation, for cutting vegetables, for cutting fruits, even making a simple sandwich, let alone cleaning game for eating. That's the kind of thing. If you have more of a texture finish, then there's quite a bit of a risk of food poisoning, and it's a lot more of a chore to keep it clean. Besides that, it actually cuts better. All right. A mirror polished blade cuts better than one that has a texture on its side, and that's simply because you start cutting with the edge of your knife, but once you start sliding through the material, that friction that you're going to be having is going to be making it harder to cut and slice through the material. If you have traction, all right, if you have more traction and friction on the sides, for example, looking at still an excellent knife, busty knife. It's actually a great knife, but this kind of finish is really not good. It's cheap, which is one of the advantages that it has, but the finish itself, it's not really good. All this texture that you have is going to be creating a lot of friction and traction with whatever it is that you're cutting. This is the kind of knife that is extremely tough, so you can easily use it for battening and cutting wood. But given that you have this textured finish on the side, the traction you're going to be having there, it's increased. So you're going to be needing more force to cut than if you had, say, polished finish like in this other busty knife. This is a finish that I did myself. I polish it myself for the same reason. It's easier to keep it clean, so it's much safer for when using it for cutting food and such. It's easier to keep it clean and avoid pitting and oxidation and such, and it's going to be cutting better as well. So basically the options you have are those three. You basically have the option of having a mirror polish finish such as this one, where you actually see the camera and you see myself, mirror polished blade. You have a satin finish, which is something like this, sort of reflects but not as fully as a mirror, in this Spyderco Endura knife. And then you have these painted finishes. Some have fancier name than others, but it's basically a paint that is either dries on the blade or it's cooked on top or chemically bonded to somehow. The thing is that some are better than others, some have less friction than others and such. At the end of the day, they all peel off eventually. They all wear off eventually. Now there is a true and very real practical reason to have something like this in your knife, especially when you're talking military application and you specifically try to avoid the reflection of the knife so as to be avoided, so as to avoid detection by enemies in enemy territory or something along those lines. That would be the only reason why you would have a problem with the reflection of a knife. Now, let's be completely honest, that's kind of a rare deal. It's not everyone that is dealing with that sort of thing. Actually, if we had to look at the chances of one thing or the other happening, I'd say it's much more likely to need help and maybe have to signal for help with a blade than actually being detected and shot by an enemy because of your knife. Of course, that will depend on each specific scenario. That's why manufacturers such as Falcon even, for example, have their blades in both options. They have it in a reflective type of finish, which has these advantages that I'm mentioning, and they also have some black coated finish. Ideally, if you have to go for something like this, try to go for something that's as smooth and has as less traction as possible. Some sort of Teflon type of finish that has that's very easy to wipe clean, that has somehow the advantages of the mirror polish finish. Yeah, I understand that not everyone likes it as much. Now, understand the following: I'm not talking here about which one I like the best, even myself. If you ask me, I like a satin finish, a fine satin finish. I think it looks pretty good, but I still understand for all the practical reasons why this type of finish is actually best. There's really no way around it. There's less, if you look at this with a microscope, with a mirror polish finish, there's less little holes and such for humidity, little bits of dirt and grit and debris to get there and start oxidizing the blade. So it actually holds on better. I actually have a good example of that. Well, this is my grandfather's knife. This is a blade, as you see, mirror polished blade. And as you see, it's in quite good shape. And this is a knife that has been used quite a bit, even though kept in very good shape and not abused badly at least, but still mirror polished blade, very, very old, still in good condition. Now, very naturally, a knife that's being used a lot will gravitate on its own to something like this. Right here you have a Victorinox that has been used a ton, and you see how it started as a mirror polished blade and it eventually has a natural satin finish to it. This is usually what ends up happening. Does this bother someone? It really doesn't bother me, but if you wanted, you could polish this blade back to a mirror polish finish as it originally had, or you can go for a satin finish and still looking quite good. Now here it's where it's a matter of aesthetics, what you like and such. Even with this natural satin finish that it sort of has, it still has very little friction, cleans very well, and it's still very much functional. It's more of a matter of aesthetics, not looking as good as it would originally look, but it keeps all the functionality that it originally had. In general, I would say this: the finer the knife, the more expensive finer blades will have either a very fine satin finish or a mirror polish finish. If you look at a custom-made knife, you will have something like that. Very mirror polish finish. If you look at some of the older cold steel knives, and this is a first-gen Voyager. I've been collecting knives for lots of guys out there think they've been collecting knives for a long time. Not a lot of them will have a cold steel first-gen Voyager. And this has been used. I mean, not abused by any means and not used a whole lot, but it has been used. I have used it quite a bit. Still looking very well. This is back in the day when Cold Steel made their knives in Japan. I think it's still AUS 8. But as you see, this is a nice finish actually. This is a very fine satin. I like it much better than the stone wash finish currently being used. by cold steel. I much like this one better. Holds on better as well, will cut better as well. As I said before, less friction of the surfaces of the side of the blade when going through the material. Simple as that. Starts cutting with the edge, but once the material starts making contact with the sides of the blade, the friction comes into play. The more friction you have, the worse it is. Something like this. Again, the reason why they do this is that it's cheaper. It's cheaper to do this kind of finish. You don't have to polish it nearly as much. You just have you just need a somewhat level surface. Then you put this coating on top, and especially because it's textured, any little defects left underneath are not nearly as detectable. With the blade without, the bussy without that textured coating, it would look something along like that. You see that surface there? Now when you polish it yourself like I did, that's what you end up, the final results, much better. So it holds on better as time goes by. The blade is certainly not compromised. A lot of folks that don't understand much about knives think, oh well, with all this exposed metal, it's going to be rusting a lot quicker. Well, it really depends. Any knife will rust eventually. Any blade will rust eventually. Now, it comes into play how much you're taking care of it yourself. But if you have a very fine satin finish, or even better, a mirror polish finish with a very light coating of oil and basic care, that's all you're going to be needing so as to keep your knife in good condition. Granted, in this case, we're talking stainless steel. In this other case, we're also talking, this is also stainless steel. But that doesn't mean that you cannot do the same thing with carbon steel. Yes, some carbon steels are much harder to keep in good shape and avoid rusting. Opinel, for example, I'm not sure which kind of steel they have, but man, Opinel knives, they rust like crazy. Maybe not ideal. I mean, yeah, with some of those knives you need or maybe with 1095 steel, you need some kind of protective coating. For most people that are not as savvy regarding knives and such, you need some type of coating. But again, with a mirror polish finish and some basic care, wiping it clean and putting a little bit of oil every once in a while, that should be enough so as to keep it in good shape and have the advantages of the mirror polish finish. Folks, as always, share the video if you liked it. Thumbs up is always appreciated. Subscribe, share, take care. Have a great day and see you on our next video.